Again,
Sure.
thank you so much for taking time out today. And I want to begin our conversation with living through the last 3.5 years with COVID. How did you get
Sure.
through it? How has it changed you?
Well, it obviously made me spend a lot of time alone and with the person I was married to at the beginning of the pandemic. And before the end of the pandemic, we had split after 21 years. So that was a big shift in my life. And, COVID certainly didn't cause all the situations, but I think it didn't help. But I also think that it accelerated the inevitable. Um, and I know I'm not alone. I've talked to a lot of other people who have experienced something similar. So for me, the pandemic caused me to reflect a lot and look inward, which I was loath to do for many years. And so, um, yeah, I think that's how I would describe its impact on me.
So let's get to the essence of what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
I help companies grow.
Okay.
And so, moving to a non-third grade definition, I would say, so I'm a fractional head of sales, which means that I'm head of sales for multiple early stage companies that can't afford a full-time head of sales. So non-startups, regular Main Street businesses, and then of course tech startups as well, which is the background that I've come from for the last 10 years or so. Having started a tech company in 2013, exiting that in 19, and then sort of falling into this where a lot of my uh, tech founder friends, who principally are technical in terms of their background, and I'm a little bit of an oddball in that I'm a founder that has a sales leadership background, and so I sort of fell into it because a lot of them started to call me and want help with sales and marketing and other things that they just weren't very skilled at.
So when you were in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to grow up and become?
Boy, I'm one of those people that had no idea for a very long time. I just
Yeah.
had absolutely no idea. Um, you open a book of careers when you're in third grade, says policeman, fireman, so none of those appeal to me. And I think today, kids looking in the career book are going to say, "Hey, I want to do this," and perhaps that career may not be around when they're an adult, or the career they'll be doing doesn't exist right now
Yeah.
because so many things have shifted and they're accelerating. So um, it's interesting how these things go. I mean, certainly the whole career, most of the career I've had in the last 10 years certainly has not, did not exist back then.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go back to where you were born and raised and how these seeds got into you to grow into your interests and what you're doing with
Yeah.
your career today.
Yeah. So the seeds were many. I'm a person of voracious interest. And one of the things that immediately attracted to me about at least the URL you sent me was the word jazz, because I mean, music has always been a very big part of my life. I'm a guitarist and a singer, not professional, amateur, but music has always been a place of great curiosity and interest, and it's a place that I feel, a certain amount of freedom. And um, so you know, for in a family like the one I grew up in, yeah, my parents are Indian immigrants, and so they're pushing real hard towards doctor, engineer, and so a lot of things that I was interested in weren't really on the menu, so to speak. But so I've kind of as I've gravitated toward different things, it's always been, you know, how does this make me feel? Do I feel that sort of freedom that I feel when I play music or I hear music? Do I feel this sort of this creativity that's getting unleashed? And so that's been a bit of a guide for me. And um, yeah, so I think those are the things that have guided me thus far. At this stage of my life, I feel like one of the big seeds that's grown over my life is just the interest in introspection, spirituality, um, making the world a better place. the idea that usually when you reach a certain age, you start getting more interested in those kind of things, and and then seeing how how these things can weave into your career and your life and that sort of thing.
So who's been kind of a hero or an inspiration for you in your life?
Um, you know, I have like categories of those. So, I read a lot of books by musicians. I also find that I read a lot of books about notable people in history, Lincoln, Jefferson, people like that. And then, and I read a lot of books about, business people. Um, and lately, more books by people who are sort of like um, people that are that are giants in this space of introspection, spirituality, personal growth, that sort of thing.
So speaking of music, what was the first live show that you ever saw that really made an impact on you?
Um, when I was a kid, we didn't we couldn't afford to go to like expensive shows, but I do remember that I think by the time I was a teenager, I went to uh, we had something in the Bay Area called Day on the Green, and it was a whole bunch of bands. So there was one that was very, very 80s, and I think it was like Madness, The Fix, um, one concert with the Cars, another one with the Police,
Yeah.
and the Police was really that was really there's a synchronicity tour,
Wow.
and that was a real sucker punch.
Yeah,
It just blew me away.
absolutely. I would love to see that. And those
Yeah,
guys really have kind of a jazz aesthetic. I mean, that's
yeah,
that's kind of their backbone. So let me ask you this.
for
If you
sure.
can
Yeah.
you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Oh man, that's a great question. Um, there's so many that my mind's getting log jammed, but I
Yeah.
will say there's one guy, and particularly, all these, maybe this is coming to me because of all the musical stuff we're talking about. He did a TED talk, and he had a music machine of some kind and a looper, and he would do this incredible stuff with African drums and Western guitar, and he just would fuse all this stuff right on stage live in this TED talk. And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And I just really admire people like that have seemingly this endless well of creativity and curiosity, fascination, and they follow it to the nth degree.
And you obviously are very curious, as you've mentioned before. So I'm curious, what is your motivation? What gets you out of bed every day? What gets you to accomplish what you want to get done?
I think what gets me out of bed now is the prospect of helping people, and a lot of that can be done through business, and um, whether it's providing them a product that's right for them or a service that's right for them. In my case now, like helping salespeople be successful, mentoring startups at incubators, that's really fulfilling. And just to be able to see, someone comes on a call with the stress on their face, and if they leave the call, they seem lighter. They seem like they feel like they can do it. They can, they have a plan of action. They want to go get after it. That's a really great feeling when it happens.
So, of all of the things that you've accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Um, I think I'm proudest of the startup that I did. Well, I've done a few, but there's one in particular called Lead Crunch that's now called Rev, and I think that was really um, fulfilling because the odds of failure are so high. It's like lightning has to strike you twice to not fail. And to have started in a garage, failed for 3 years, nearly run out of money three times, not get paid for 3 years, and then pivot and all of a sudden, take off, and all of a sudden you have 65 employees and $24 million run rate, and you're closing your Series B round, which is the point where I exited. That is just it was quite a thrill. Um, and in the early years were incredibly fun. the later years were very stressful, and you know, and then and riddled with conflict. But you know, so we had all those flavors and elements to it, like a good story does, and um, and I'm very proud of that because you're defying the odds at every step, and um, we worked so hard, and uh, and to have an outcome that you could be proud of is really something to behold.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a much younger version of yourself, say in your 20s, and
Yeah,
you can give that
yeah,
young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life. What
yeah.
advice would you give your younger self?
I would give myself. I would probably say a lot of things, although I will say that my younger self may not have understood any of my advice or followed any of it,
Yeah.
and I was going to have to go through what I was going to have to go through anyway, maybe. But I would say things like um, encourage that, just give a lot of encouragement. Hey, you could do it. Get after it. Don't be afraid to think bigger. Um, get in touch with your emotions. Learn to feel your emotions. Meditate. Learn how to be grounded and learn how to recognize when you're emotionally triggered and how to um, take space for yourself when that happens, um, and how to deal with people that are difficult, and read up on that, learn about that. That's probably what I would tell myself.
So if you could see any event that took place on this planet in the history of
Yeah.
recorded civilization, what would you love to have seen happen with your own eyes?
That is such a great question. I think I would like to see, you know, even though I'm not Christian, I don't identify as Christian. I would love to walk around with Jesus when he was, during the part of his life where he was teaching and where all the Bible events happened.
Yeah,
I would just think that would be utterly, fascinating to watch.
yeah, it would be for sure. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients,
Yeah,
colleagues, but you're in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
that's interesting because my perception has changed there dramatically. And um, I think, I guess I see myself as a person who is curious, much more than I've ever been before, earnest, authentic. That's a direction that has become very important to me. Um, and, has a desire to help where it makes sense to do so, caring, and committed to changing for the better. That's what I would say.
Wonderful. If anyone wants to reach out to you, get in touch with you, learn more about you, where's the best place
Yeah.
for them to go?
Bolt.io. That's B as in boy, OLTT.io. And that's the website for, my fractional sales services. So anybody who's doing B2B sales, business to business, and isn't growing as fast as they want, that's my superpower. I help businesses, and I can really help them grow. Um, and I have a lot of happy clients and happy past clients, so you can read about there.
Right on. Hey, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great.